Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to install your Shimano 105 R7100 front derailleur to your bike. So let's go ahead, let's run through the steps. So here we have the front derailleur. So I'll just show you a couple of things on it while I've got it like this so you can see it easier. So you've got a 5mm Allen key there to mount it to your hanger. You've got your high screw, which is the right hand one, your low screw left hand one, 2mm hex Allen keys for them. You've got your cable tension 2mm there on the top. Down inside there, in here, you've got your 2mm in there, and that goes through, comes out there, and that will push on to the tab that you stick on the frame to put some tension on the cage. So we get into that when we're fitting it. And then see underneath the cover on the top there, you pull off that cover, then you've got the cable pinch bolt 4mm Allen key there underneath this cover, and that cover just goes back on the top. I'll show you now. That round peg in the middle goes down the centre of the pinch bolt like that. Just push it on. That's just the cover. We'll get into that when we're fitting it. Now on the back of these, obviously your cable comes up through there like that, and then goes into that slot there and underneath the pinch bolt. This part here where it's going into there. Now what I do on them, and this is optional, you don't have to do it, but I'll just show it anyway, is you get an end ferrule like that, just standard end cable ferrule, and then what you do is just cut that down. So basically you just cut it off so it's only as long as this piece here, so it just fits up inside there. So it takes it from that big hole like that down to a proper ferrule with the cable just coming out in the middle like that instead, because believe it or not, that fits straight up in there because it's designed to have a stop in the end of it with a complete cable coming out of it. So that's what I do, just cut one of them down and put it up inside there before you go and fit it to the bike. But like I say, that's just optional. And then obviously you've got your gauge on the front there, what just lines up your chain ring or outer chain ring to that gauge. If you haven't got that gauge on there, if that's not there, all you do is just use a hex head Allen key like that and just rest it on the plate to your teeth on your chain ring. So just use like a 2mm hex and just rest it coming straight out like that between your teeth on your chain ring and the plate. If you haven't got that on yours, if it doesn't come with it on there, it's not new for instance. So what we do, we go ahead and get this fitted to the bike. So the first thing you're going to do is obviously under your 5mm bolt there to mount it onto the hanger. So just get that on there. Like that, and then what you want to do obviously with the gauge on here is line it up with the teeth on the chain ring. So just line that up so it's in the right place. And when you're happy with it, just nip that up for now, because then what you want to do is down through the centre there you've got the 2mm which goes through and pushes onto the tab on the frame. So what you've got to check is get on that 2mm there and wind that in, keep winding it in, and have a look where it's going to hit the frame. So in this instance, this particular frame, even though it's carbon fibre, the hanger here is riveted on, and the hanger is like aluminium, it's not carbon. So in this instance that screw is going to go through and hit on this metal, so it doesn't need the plate stuck onto the frame. Now some bikes obviously are carbon fibre, and so is the hanger, it's carbon as well. So in that case you want to stick this on, because if you don't, that screw, it's got a bit of tension on it, or will have when it's finished. It's going to have a bit of tension on it, so which will wear a hole in the frame eventually. So with this, what you want to do is, like I said, wind that through until it's just touching the frame, and then get a marker pen and just back it away again, just put a little mark where it needs to be. Then remove your derailleur, just undo that again because you just nipped it up, just undo it, remove this out of the way, and then with the tab, see what you want to do is peel off the piece of paper there, off the sticky, and then stick that so as if the screw's coming through, it's hitting here, it's hitting this side, so the sticky's on this side, so the screw will be hitting the side without the sticky part on it, so it hits like this side there. So once you've stuck that on, then all you do, make sure the frame's clean before you stick it on, stick that on, and then just quickly put your derailleur back on, so you're back to this stage again with it lined up with the teeth like that, and make sure that screw in there isn't touching the frame, so it's backed away from the frame. You don't want it touching at the moment, you just want to back it away so it's nowhere near touching. So you've stuck the plate on there but the screw's not touching it at the moment, so you're back to how it is like this. So now once you got to that stage and you're happy with the alignment there, what you can do is, obviously if you remove this, you can remove that off the cage like that for the time being, because you don't need it now. So what you want to look for is at the front here, it's obviously if you get a hex head and just put it on the chain ring like that, you can see if it's parallel or not. So obviously the back edge here is sticking out away from the chain ring. As it comes down like that, it's away, it's okay there, but it moves it away there. So what you want is to move the back of the cage, so this part here, that way, so as it's about inboard by about a millimetre from that chain ring, the teeth on the chain ring. So the minute it's hitting it like that, so that's no good. So what you want to do is, all you do is just slacken your 5mm off, and then just move the back of the cage round a little bit, and then what you can do is check it again. So you want to make sure that it's inboard of that chain ring, so to speak, so it's not, as you can see, it's back a little bit from there now, so it's in that way. So now you know that back edge is set in a little bit, you can fully tighten up, pinch that down like that, and then make sure it's held, and then you just torque that up, so like 7 Newton meters torque on it, on the pinch bolt, tighten that down. So now we've got that set there. When you're looking down this way at it, it's slightly inboard. So then what you do is, with that 2mm in the middle there, you get on that like that, and then wind that in till it hits the tab on the frame, and then what that does is brings this cage back out. So as it's parallel again, so it was inboard, now it's brought it back out, so it's just added a little bit of tension to that cage. So that's what that does, to tension the cage up. So that's that step complete. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the next stage. So what we've done now is, all we've done is just rested the chain on there, so that's just resting there. So to put tension on it, just hold on to it here and just hold on your cassette at the back and put some tension on it like that. So it's rested on the largest sprocket on the cassette and it's rested on the inner chainring like that. So now we need to do the low screw, which is the left hand one. So what you want to do is when you've got some tension on that, what you're doing is looking down here at the plate, the inner plate with the plastic on it, to make sure there's enough gap there, like a millimetre gap in here between the chain and the plate. Now I'll just point something out on this. Wherever you set this here now without the cable on, the cable's not attached, so wherever that's set, you cannot move. Once the cable's connected, you won't be able to move that plate. It'll only move this way. You won't be able to move it any further towards the tyre, so to speak, because these are the limit screws, that's all they're doing. So you've got to make sure that the gap is, like I said, enough there, because you won't be able to move it away any more towards the tyre once the cable's hooked up, and that same applies to the high screw as well. But this is the low screw, so what we need to do is just move that out a little bit, just turn it, obviously clockwise is moving the cage towards the outer chain ring, and anti-clockwise moves it towards the tyre. So you just want to have a look. You can look up from down here, up here, and see what the gap's like. I say it doesn't want to be too big, and it doesn't want to be touching it. Just wind that over. Just winding it this way. So we've got a gap there now, just down there, say it's about a millimetre gap. And then what we'll do now is, now we've got that set, is just lift your chain off. So I'll just remove that out of the way. And then I'll just check the high screw, so you can just get hold of your derailleur, basically, your cage, and just pull that over like that. And you want it set so as basically the inner plate there is like basically touching on the teeth of the chain ring, so it's hitting it like that. So the inner plate's hitting there, because we can adjust that when that means we can adjust it over when the cable's put in place, so it comes over plenty far enough so we can adjust it back the other way when the cable's on, like that. So that's basically the high and low screws done. So we move on to hooking up the cable through the pinch bolt. So we just got the cable up there through the ferrule that I put in, like that, so it just hold itself up. And then with the plastic cover on the top, you just remove that cover off of there. And then, like I said earlier, this is 4mm for the pinch bolt. So on this pinch bolt, what it does is, when this screws in here, this 2mm screws in, it pushes round on top of here, like that. So you screw that in and it pushes this round for the cable tension. So what you've got to remember is, before you hook the cable up and pinch it down, you've got to make sure that isn't round like that, because you won't be able to adjust it. This grey piece and the piece there on the actual washer underneath the bolt is touching one another, so they've got to be touching together, so as when you screw that in, it'll push that round like that, both of them round. If they're not touching, then it won't work. It's got to be back like that. So just keep your eye out for that. And also, before you hook the cable up, make sure that your shifter is shifted, set so it's shifted down to the inner chain ring. it's not set anywhere else. It's got to be on the inner chainring before you hook the cable up under the pinch bolt. So all you do with that is, like I say, you just undo your pinch bolt, just get it slackened off a little bit to be able to put the cable underneath it like that. Then you want the cable coming round, because it's going to come round this way. So we just get that round like that, and then before we snug it down, we make sure that it's connected, they're touching there like it should be. And I'll just pull on this cable. So it depends how long your cable is, you might be able to pull on it by hand. If not, then you can just pinch it back, further back, with a pair of pliers on the cable to pinch it, because obviously when you try and hold it and pull on it with your hand, you just slip. Your tendency is to slip on the cable, so it's always better to use a pair of pliers. So as you see, I'll just use a pair of pliers on the cable further back, and I'll just pull on it, the angle you see it there, basically. You just pull back on the cable. Like I said earlier, make sure they're touching in there before you snug it down. So just pull on it, on the cable tight, and then nip that up so it holds it for now. So that's the obviously the cable through in the right place. So now we just got to check the alignment, make sure, see if we need to adjust the cable tension. So you can shift up and down with your shifter. Like that. So you know it shifts up and down where it should be. So shift up and down a few times just to bed the cable in properly. And then what you want to do is, I'll just move the camera and then show you the adjustment on here. So to check your cable tension, what you need to do is, obviously this is set to the inner chainring at the moment, so you need to shift up to the outer chainring, and then on your shifter, if you just shift as though you're going to shift down, but don't shift all the way down to the inner chainring, just tap the shifter once and it will shift into, it will just move slightly, it won't shift all the way down to the inner chainring. You don't want it on the inner chainring, so I'll shift up and then just tap it once and it will just move over ever so slightly. So that's on the outer chainring there. Then I'll just shift, I'll just tap it like that. That's on the inner chainring down there. So that's the outer chainring. So you just tap the shifter and it just moved ever so slightly. So what you're looking for, now that's in the right place, is if I zoom in, you see just above that rivet there, there's a line. So there's this long line here, and above that rivet there's also a line, not that line that's over there, that one there. So there's one line there and one just here. So those two, as you see there, are near as damn it. Well, on the camera they look like they're lined up, but just needs a little bit of tension on it, only a small amount. Yours might be just out of line a bit more than that. That's just cable tension, that's all this is. So to tension that is that 2mm up here next to the pinch bolt. So you just wind that in and that moves that plate round, like I've shown. That's why they've got to be touching. So if you just move that slightly, I can just put a bit of tension on it. I've moved it about a couple of turns now. A couple of turns of tension on that. And those two lines there are perfectly lined up. Like I say, yours might be slightly out, so you might have to wind it quite far in, nearly all the way in, say, to line those lines up. So that's all that's doing. So we know that's set now, so we can go ahead then and obviously put the chain on properly and hook the cable up. So what we've done is put the chain back on, it's connected up properly now, and then what we've done is shifted over to the largest sprocket on the cassette, and we're on the inner chain ring. So you just got to look down there now, the chain's on properly, and just make sure you've got that gap in there, about a millimetre gap. It's not going to be a lot, just so the chain passes cleanly through without actually rubbing tight on the plate. So like I say, it's not going to be a very big gap in there at all. And then what you do is, once you've checked it there, what you got to do is shift down obviously on your rear cassette and then change up to the largest chain ring to check the gap up in here to make sure it's not rubbing when you're in that setting. So now we're on the largest and the smallest at the rear. You can hear that's just touching just in here. So to eliminate that touching there, we just get on the hoist screw and we can turn that. If you turn it clockwise, it's going to move it over this way. So it produces enough of a gap there, so that's going to pass through without touching. Obviously if you move it the other way, it'll move it. If you move it anti-clockwise, that screw, it's going to move this whole case back towards the frame, so to speak. So we just do a few turns there just to get enough of a gap. And again, it's not going to be a big gap, it's just going to be enough so it's not touching when you're in the 11, smallest sprocket on the rear cassette. So it's just going to miss that. It's only going to be like a millimetre gap in there. So that's the high and low screws basically adjusted. If you need to make any adjustments, you can adjust it. But like I said, the inner, the low screw, you can only adjust it one way effectively, so you can't adjust it further back towards the tyre from where it was set before you hook the cable up. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. So with the cover that goes on the top of your pinch bolt for the cable, it's got a large hole there and a small hole there. So the large hole, you put the cable through the large hole first and out the small hole like that, so that's on there. And then with the cable here, it needs to just go round and underneath this black piece here, so you just need to lift it up on the cage like that, so you can get it in the correct place. Make sure it's going in where it should be at the back, like that. And then you can just let it down. And then with the cover, I'll show you the peg in the middle there goes down through the pinch bolt like that, and it just sits in place like that. And then what you need to do is cut your cable down and put the stop on the end of it. So we just snip that off. And then obviously crimp your end on it, stop it fraying. So that's the derailleur on there now. So you can go up to your shifter. Check the changes. And that's the installation complete. So if you found the video helpful, if you did, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.